Hello, this is Shantria Tram with Logical Outcomes. In this video, Nicholas Santillo and Sarah Godin will take you through your introduction to access and usability.
So authentication and authorization. Authentication is the who are you. It's the user name and the password. This is to make sure that you're allowed to get in and see the system itself. And you'll be doing this every time you log in to DHIS2. The authorization is the what are you allowed to do. And this has to do with the user roles. Now, users and user roles are very similar, but they are different in DHIS2, and we'll go through that on the next slides. The user roles have to do with what users are allowed to do. So whereas you might have a few dozen or a few hundred of users, you might only have a handful of user roles and then divide those amongst all the different users. So user roles might be admin, super user, data entry, these types of things. And they're a collection or grouping of permissions which the users will be able to do or what they aren't able to do. If you want to spend some time looking through all of those permissions, I suggest you go into the training land instance of DHIS2 or into your own instance if you have one, and just take a look through that long and exhaustive list. It's definitely a few dozen, if not over 100 specific, very, very specific options. Finally, user roles are allowed to access specific data sheets or data sets, which are where you enter data. So it's important to set up user roles. You might have user roles that have similar permissions but have different data sets that they're allowed to deal with. Now, users have access to user roles. You can give a user one user role or multiple user roles, and then they will have the combination of all of the permissions of those multiple user roles. And the user is connected to organization units, which are the organization levels of your system. Now, we'll talk more about that in a later unit, but to get a general sense of it now, the national, regional, district, subcountry, or subcounty and health units are examples of organization unit levels in health sectors. And a user might be given access to any one of them or multiple. Now, there might be multiple districts, multiple counties, multiple health units or facilities, and they might have a user might only be allowed to have access to a specific region or specific district, whereas they might have more or less roles within that. It is important to notice that constraint only applies up the hierarchy. So if you give someone admin access at a district level, that means they also, by de facto, have admin access to all of the counties and health units within that specific district. So that's important to remember. This is an example of what you would enter when updating a user or creating a new user. And in the next slide, I'll be signing in to DHIS2 in a little video webcast that I did with Sarah Godin, also of Logical Outcomes. And she's going to go through what you would do as a user to update your profile, your settings, and how to manage your user information within DHIS2. So I'll come back after you watch that video.
Click the profile in the top right corner. Now there's a few things here that will be interesting for you. One we can look at later is about DHIS2, just where you get your DHIS2 version, that will be in there. For you, let's check out your account.
Okay. So it's just going to load now. Okay.
So yeah, an account, you'll change your password if you need to, or an admin person could reset your password. And another important thing is to include your email and your phone number. So this, if you enable the SMS, so messages to text, or email notifications, this is where it's really important that you have your correct information.
Great.
Yeah, so let's go back to profile and check out settings.
Okay.
So there's a couple really important pieces here in settings. One is your language. So it's the language that you see, the interface. And then we can also assign translations to data elements and then actually translate the database in a different language.
Okay. Cool.
You can change your interface color here, and the option below is once we get into reporting, you can choose whether you'd like to see the name or just the short name in a report legend. So it would be advised that you change your settings to see the short name so that when you're viewing reports, you have a nice shorter character name.
Okay.
So yeah, the other two checkboxes here are for if you want email notifications, then again you need your email address, and then if you want the SMS notification, and again you need the email address. So let's click back on profile and actually just go to the profile. So this is where other DHIS2 users who are in your user group and can see you will see information about you. So this is optional, but you could put in, job title, gender, a little more information about yourself.
Okay, cool. And this is all public within the system.
Mm-hmm.
Very neat. Cool. And so that's all stuff that I can do once I've logged in, and it's all under this profile area here.
Mm-hmm.
Great. I think that's about enough for now, yeah?
Yes.
So finally, here in the last slide, we're going to just cover some best practices. Now, there's obviously a lot of different things that we could go over. These are just 4 of the ones that the DHIS2 Academy likes to cover, and we definitely agree that defining username convention is very important. This has to do more with what you want to do in your own organization, but it's definitely something to think about, whether you're using first name, last name, or just first initial, or however you want to go about that. Also, the appropriate role is very important for your users, making sure that you make enough roles as is appropriate, not overdoing it. You can very easily make more roles than you need. So we suggest really minimizing the number of roles that you make, and then maybe doubling them up if you need to for specific users or special users. But being aware that users should be only allowed to do the things that they need to do, and not to give out excess permissions, because the system can get very messed up very easily if people are deleting things that they're not supposed to be. Finally, the data entry level and the analysis level. This is how you're going to be entering data at what level and what data you're going to be looking at. That has to do with the data sets that you have access to in the user roles, and of course the org units you'll have access to as a user. And this is important because if you have only access to certain organizational units or org units, you may not be able to analyze all the data, or you may be seeing only part of the full picture. So something to keep in mind when creating these users and user roles. Now, as I said, this is going to be the final slide, so I'm going to leave you with just a little quiz, as we like to do at the end of these office mixes, to see if we can stump you or if you've picked up something along the way. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and we'll pick up with the next unit, Unit 3, after this.
Thanks for watching. You can always contact us at info@logicaloutcomes.net or click right there on the screen to access the online curriculum.